Thank you for the introduction. Yeah. We just figured out what's happening in Japan. I guess maybe now it's what's happening in China. My speech today, the title is Building a Compliance-Ready Blockchain. That's, we will look at the history, the today's status, and the future of NEO. So before I start my speech, I would like to show you an old picture. It's quite old in this industry. So I guess this picture is taken in 2013 or 2014. That's the first time Vitalik visited China. And back then, we are doing a community organization called Bit Angels Club. And we're doing meetups, conference in China, in Shanghai. And then we spin off a project called N-Shares, and later on it is rebranded to NEO. So this is the early days of NEO. We started in 2014. It's about around the same time that Ethereum started. And we announced the project in the first ever Bitcoin conference in China. It's in Beijing. And then 3 months later, in July, we finished our seed funding. That's only about $90,000 US, a very small amount of money. But those seed funders, they got very well rewarded. 10% of all the NEO tokens are rewarded to those seed funders. And then we started our first line of code 1 year after. We took a lot of time to think about our design philosophy, the goal we're really going after, and how to design the whole architecture. And then we did 2 ICOs, respectively in 2015 and 2016. And we raised a little over $4 million US. It's, the amount of money is not bad at that time, but comparing today's ICO that raised like hundreds of million US, it's just peanuts. Last year, we did a rebranding. We renamed our blockchain from N-Shares because there are some brand conflicts. I renamed it to NEO. And the rebranding is quite successful. We caught attention from the Western community, especially the developers community. They checked our GitHub, and they found out that we have been developing the project for almost 2 years. And a lot of technical features are very original, and the architecture is very original. So they just converted all their Bitcoin and Ethereum and other token holdings into NEO tokens. And we saw the price of NEO just went up very quickly. And 2 months ago, we did our first ever developers conference in San Francisco. And about 600 developers joined our conference, and a lot of projects shared their experience with NEO. So here is a picture from the developers conference. It's quite successful. Okay, so what is NEO? You can tell from the logo that the logo says NEO Smart Economy. I've been asked during a lot of interviews that what is smart economy? It's quite difficult to define things, but I want to explain smart economy in 3 aspects. The first aspect is that we believe the future economy will be a digitized economy. So everything will be digitized, will have its digital form. It could be currencies, it could be assets, it could even be identities or even IoT devices. So everything will have its digital form. Probably we won't see those paperworks anymore. And then we have another aspect is as long as all the assets, the currencies are in digital forms, we can use programming language to administrate those digital assets. So it's also a programmable economy. We can manipulate things with smart contract or even with legacy systems. And then it's a trustless economy. Because today we pay a lot of price. We pay a very high cost for trust. We're paying lawyers, we're paying editors, we're paying regulators, we're paying even police to building trust, to enforce contracts. But with blockchain technology, we probably will reduce the price of trust tremendously. And I believe when the price of trust reduces tremendously, we will see a lot of new business models come up. There is a very controversial rating recently. It's called WIS rating. Do you guys heard of it? They categorized different cryptocurrencies into 5 categories. There are A, B, C, D, and E. A stands for the best one, and E stands for the most poorest one. And there's only one cryptocurrency had ever achieved A-class rating, and that is not Bitcoin, that's not Ethereum, and it's NEO. And then we saw 8 cryptocurrencies ranked as B, and several ranked as C, fair, and some with D, and even a few with E. So WIS rating is based on 4 factors. It's the risk, it's the reward, and the technology behind it, and the fundamentals. So according to WIS, according to those 4 factors, NEO is one of the best performer in cryptocurrencies. And this is NEO is very special project. We started very early. We have no endorsement from those big name investors or big names. So we relied a lot on communities. We are building a very international and very developer-oriented community. The first developer community emerged is called City of Zion. They started, I think the founder lives in Boston, and most of them are English speaking. And there are dozens of developers inside of City of Zion. And now we also have a Chinese speaking developer. They're based in Shanghai. And recently, I think it's last week when I was speaking in a meetup in Melbourne, there is 2 guys, two professors from Brazil. They formed a new Brazil community. It's called Neo Research. And we also work with white hat hackers. Red4Sec is a white hat hacker group. They found some critical issues or bugs in the new blockchain protocol, and they informed us, and we decided to work with them. They did a full security audit for us. And because NEO started from China, so originally most of the documentation is written in Chinese. It's a big pain to translating those documentations into different languages. And the community is helping us a lot. So today, all the documentations has been translated into more than 10 different languages. And we are also very active on social media. We have over 80,000 subscribers on subreddit, on our Reddit. We have Facebook, Twitter followers. And besides of online community, we also do a lot of offline meetups. This month, we did meetups in Singapore, Tokyo, Taipei, Melbourne, Sydney, and Seoul. And these are the decentralized applications or dApps that is building on top of NEO. Now we come to price. That's the screenshot I took, I think it's last week. The price I think it's higher than today's price. So we've seen a kind of a crash in the previous few days. And I checked it before I went to the stage, and it recovered a little bit. Currently, NEO is ranked at 6 market cap-wise. 6 is not very bad. But we're not satisfied with where we are today. We have declared our goal, our vision for at the DevCon, which is to make NEO the #1 blockchain by 2020. So we want to be the best public blockchain in 2 to 3 years. I said #1, it doesn't mean we have to have the highest price or to have the biggest market cap, but we are aiming to become the preferred or most popular platform to build decentralized application on top of it by providing the best performance, the diversified ecosystem, and a compliance-ready solutions. The killer app of application. I think there are two killer apps of blockchain so far, which is, the first one is decentralized gold, which is basically Bitcoin. And the second killer app, any answer? What do you think? It's ICO, yes, it's ICO. And ICO brought Ethereum become the second largest cryptocurrency in the world. But there is something missing in between. Without this, ICO and decentralized gold won't be successful as today. What is that? That's exchanges. Lots of people are buying Bitcoin, not just because they believe in Bitcoin, the philosophy. They're trying to buy it at a lower price and sell it at a higher price. And lots of people participated in ICO just trying to sell those tokens later at a higher price. But all this relies on exchanges. But I saw lots of problems with centralized exchanges. Mt. Gox used to be the biggest one, but they claimed that they got hacked and they are bankrupt. And there are other big exchanges that used to be the biggest one, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, their business just going down, or they got cracked, like BTCE, they're seized by FBI. So I think in the future, decentralized exchange is probably a new trend, and centralized exchange will share the market with decentralized exchange. This is a very bold statement. Eventually, centralized exchange will die, but it takes time. It could be 10 years or even longer. Because there are lots of reasons with, lots of issues with centralized exchange. They have to be very secured, they have to comply with the regulations, and it's a very high cost. So I think the next killer app of blockchain will be decentralized exchange. We need a perfect decentralized exchange. A perfect decentralized exchange needs, there are 5 factors, which is it needs to have very high transaction per second. It needs to have perfect finality. That means you don't need to wait 6 confirmations. 1 confirmation should be final. And it needs interoperability. That means other tokens can be traded on this platform. It means Bitcoin or Ethereum or other tokens can move to the platform. And also, you will need digital identity, because eventually, decentralized exchange will be regulated, And then we need a stable coin to be the one end of the trading pair. And NEO is a perfect platform to build a decentralized exchange on top of it, because we have quite high performance transaction per second. We can handle 1,000 transactions per second today. And also, we have perfect finality, because we used a consensus mechanism called DBFT. You only need to wait 1 confirmation. And we have an interoperability protocol, a cross-chain protocol called NEOX. So tokens on other blockchains can be moved onto NEO. And then we have digital identity modules. And there are several stablecoin projects are working on top of NEO. I just said we can handle 1,000 transactions per second. But for exchange, for a perfect decentralized exchange, 1,000 transactions is not enough. So we did some research, and after the research, we believe we can achieve 100,000 transactions per second in 2 to 3 years' time. And this is without sharding. We don't need to divide the transactions into different shards or into different zones. So for the next 2 or 3 years, we will see a lot of competition between public blockchains. And we believe there are 3 dimensions of those competitions. The first one is definitely technology. But technology is not a very high barrier because everything is open sourced. So if there is some new technology with other blockchains, we can learn it. If we have some new technology, other blockchains can learn from it. So the second dimension will be ecosystem. It's it's a barrier for new public blockchains to enter this industry. Today, Ethereum has the biggest ecosystem. But I think NEO comes just after Ethereum. We have the second biggest ecosystem. But the most important factor I would like to emphasize on is governance and compliance. I do believe the governance model of the blockchain, the compliant solution of the blockchain will be the third dimension that future blockchains will be competing on. So why compliance is so important? Because it eliminates uncertainties of regulations. We've seen the crackdown of exchanges in China that affects the price of tokens a lot. We've seen the ban of ICO in China. And it also reduces frauds, Ponzi schemes, and other market manipulations. And it will bring mainstream financial institutions on board onto this industry. And all those comes down to the goal of NEO is to serve for the real business, to do real business on blockchain. And what is needed to be compliant? The first thing is not technology. We believe the first thing we needed is a non-anarchism community mindset. The mindset of NEO community is quite different from Bitcoin community or other blockchains. From the first version of our white paper, we've said very clearly that we want to be compliant. We want to bridge the real world, the real business with blockchain. So I do believe the NEO community has a very open mindset. And the second thing we need is an identity module. A digital identity is like the bridge between the real economy and the blockchain. And then the third is a technical stack that is compliance ready. And the most critical part is the consensus mechanism. If you are still using proof of work mechanism, its consensus mechanism, it will be very, very difficult to be compliant. The consensus mechanism used by NEO is called DBFT, or Delegated Byzantine Fault Tolerance. So there are three types of transactions on NEO. The first one is transfer. The second one is to invoke a smart contract. And the third one is the most interesting one. It's a voting transaction. You can govern the NEO blockchain with voting if you are holding a NEO token. So the NEO token is like the ownership, the stake, the governing power of the NEO blockchain. And then you can select those consensus nodes. And after those consensus nodes get voted in, they will reach consensus in the Byzantine fault-tolerant algorithm. These are the advantages of DBFT. It's very fast, it's final, and it scales to infinite full nodes, and it's eco-friendly. You don't need to do mining with DBFT. And also because those consensus nodes are identifiable. So it is very, if you discover an issue, a bug in the protocol, in the network, you can upgrade very efficiently. But it also means those consensuses, the government can find those consensus. They can pressure those consensus nodes. So what's the solution? The solution will be we are in the process to decentralize those consensus nodes into different jurisdictions. So the implication will be in the future, if all the consensus nodes are located and controlled by different entities in different jurisdictions, so no single jurisdiction or government can sabotage the NEO network. And only if all the international community, the groups of regulators, they decided, they reach a consensus, so they can implement some kind of regulation onto the NEO blockchain. And with that kind of regulation, because everything is on-chain, so it is very transparent and it's auditable. You cannot do backstage things. So this is the decentralized plan we want to execute starting this year. We will put up a campaign website, so those consensus nodes will register there and they will campaign to be selected. And there are many major organizations that are willing to be to running one of the consensus nodes, including City of Zion, KPM, the biggest Dutch telecommunication company, and also one of the top blockchain capital called Fenbushi Capital from China. With new, there is an organization called New Council. It's behind the New. We can do technical support, we will do marketing support, and we will also invest in the new ecosystem. And the investment arm is called New Global Capital. It's a registered fund in Singapore. And one of the projects we invested in is called Ontology. And besides of investment, we also do research grants to academic like professors, students. And it's through a foundation we registered in the United States. It's called Open Blockchain Foundation. We will donate 10 to 15 million US dollars to the foundation. This is how we're going to use those reserved tokens. We reserved 50% of the tokens. The 10% will be used to incentive the team, the internal team, and 10% were used to incentive the community, especially the developers, and 15% will invest in the ecosystem, and another 15% is flexible. So before I finish my speech, I would like to share you with some pictures. This is this is taken from the first meetup, a blockchain meetup, or Bitcoin meetup in China. That's 2013. I took a picture with Roger Ver. And then this is, I'm speaking at a conference. And this conference is actually held in Hong Kong. That's the first time I give a public speech in Hong Kong. And the topic I'm talking is crowdfunding DAC. DAC is the same, has the same meaning with DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So at that time, I'm introducing NEO to Hong Kong audience back to 2014. And this is Zhao Changpeng. He is speaking at one of our, Zhao Changpeng is the CEO of Binance, and is speaking at one of the meetups back to 2014 in Shanghai. And this is Eric Zhang. He's one of the two founders of NEO. So I worked with him together in this office, and this is where NEO, the project, started. It's in Shanghai. And now things are getting better. That's the first time me and Eric Zhang attended the Consensus conference. It's held in New York by CoinDesk. And this is me interviewed by Bloomberg a few months ago. So the industry is growing, and we are growing. Thank you very much. This is my speech. Thank you.